They told me fat was bad. They didn't know fat was where the fire lay. Truth in the tallow. They said low fat was the way to be, but I lost my fire, my mind, my energy. Swapped it back for steak and yolk. Now I rise clean, no crash, no joke. My fuel ain't brown, my fuel ain't white. It's golden butter melting in the light. No sugar highs, no hunger gains. Just real food rolling through my veins.
The fire's in the fat. That's where the healing's at. Your fuel so real, so true, so clean. Fat feeds the body and sharpens the dream. The fire's in the fat. Say it loud, don't take it back. The fire's in the fat. Say it loud, don't take it back.
Brain runs smooth like grass-fed ghee. Buttered up, truth in every beat of me. Say goodbye to cravings and crash. My energy's steady, my vision flash. Vitamin A, DK unlocked. Cause fat's the key, not some detox. Tallow in the pan, pride on the plate. They feel what fuels me, that's fair.
They said fat clothes, but it cleared my mind. They said fat kills, but it brought me back to life. They said fat clothes, but it cleared my mind. They said fat kills, but it brought me back to life. In the fat, don't fear what made you strong. It's spirit alone. The fire's in the fat. You feel it now, you're burning clean. Your truth that fueled and finally seen.
Else is sick and fucking tired of seeing all the carnivore shit all over these fucking apps. No one cares if you only eat meat. Every single one of you have to identify by carnivore fucking Connie, carnivore Ken, whatever the fuck your name is, and you add carnivore to the end of it on your fucking bio is fucking weird. Weird. You're literally treating your diet like a fucking religion. A religion. A meat religion. Okay? Like, what in the absolute meat fuck is this shit? Your fucking boards with your eggs and your cheese and your fucking butter and your dates. Who cares? You can't shit. Your fiber intake is fucking zero, and you think you're just fucking trudging through life getting all healthy. Get the fuck out of here. No one cares. Your meat fucking ass, your meat farts, your meat sweats. No one wants to fucking hear about it. Okay?
And we're live. This is the Meat of the Matter podcast. That is Mark. Peter. I am Tony.
Never gets old, does it?
It doesn't. And just for the record, dates aren't carnivore. I don't know why she said that, but anyway, she's gone off on a tangent. This is the place where we meet you matter. And we're live every Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. in the UK and Ireland, and 7 p.m. in the Netherlands and in continental Europe. And today, boys, how are we doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Welcome back, Peter.
Yeah, it's good to see you back, Peter. So just to give everybody a heads up, we do appreciate all the comments and the support. We're trying to get ahead of things, you know, us tech-savvy guys. We've just launched our new Meat of the Matter channel on YouTube, so we'll be broadcasting it on that as well, and that is on YouTube at MOTHM 2025. So appreciate that. And we had a busy week, Mark. Peter was off doing his Peter things, and we had a bunch of guests, and just a big special announcement for next week. we've got the carnivore phenom Eddie Goki coming on to co-host. So all you guys out there in Meat of the Matterland, we get your questions ready. This guy's his brain is amazing, and he's a big presence in the carnivore community, and we're excited to have him. Mark and I actually sat down with him this week. We talked for a little over 2 hours. We're going to put that up on the channel fairly soon, like this week, to have him come and co-host next week. So I know Peter was a little upset that he didn't get a chance to meet him, but he will be here co-hosting with us. So join us. We're looking forward to it. So today, guys, on our chat beforehand, we were talking a little bit about insulin resistance and the Randall cycle and a lot of things that are going on. You know, I think a lot of people, we get these terms and these coins, specifically insulin resistance, and not many people really know what's going on. And I know Peter's got a video lined up for us to kind of get. I'm not going to lie. I saw it this morning. I was confused as hell. I was like, it confused the shit out of me. But Peter, he's here to explain it. And him being a type 1 diabetic, I think he's a pretty big influence on how he uses insulin and what goes on. So first of all, thoughts on insulin resistance. And is it insulin resistance or is it elevated blood sugar? Mark, what do you think?
No, it's not. Well, elevated blood sugar and insulin resistance are two different things, completely two different things. When we hear of insulin resistance in the fitness community, everybody's blaming it on different things like it's all down to blood glucose. It has nothing to do with blood glucose. Blood glucose is down to the amount of carbohydrates that we're eating on a daily basis. So we're going to touch on the Randall cycle very, very soon. But what you need to understand is pretty much what is optimal for human health: protein and carbohydrates, or fats and proteins. That's pretty much how the Randall cycle is. Which one do we do better on? It's carbohydrates, glucose or fats. The human body thrives off fats. So that's where we're going to focus on. So there's a big difference between insulin. Insulin resistance, in a way, is natural, but you need to look at what you do as a lifestyle kind of thing. Whereas blood glucose, the way I see it is everybody in the world is sick at the moment. And it's not down to insulin resistance. It's down to elevated blood glucose. We're putting way too much junk down our necks: carbohydrates, processed food, seed oils. The list goes on and on and on. And this is the reason why so many people are metabolically unhealthy, which leads onto insulin resistance. But we need to find out what's causing the problems. And it's not insulin resistance itself. It's elevated blood glucose.
I would have to agree with that. And Peter, coming from the type 1 diabetic perspective, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, definitely, like Mark explained, they are two different things. And insulin resistance, first of all, is a construct. So it's not something that you can directly measure. You can measure it in several ways: estimate it, not measure it. So I'm making the same mistake here. You can estimate it, and you can also define it in several ways. So you can look at fasting insulin, for example, and make calculations there. You can do advanced tests, look at how your body responds to consumed glucose and carbohydrates. You can also look at what I do as a type 1 diabetic: inject insulin without eating and look at what that does to your body. And even that one is not a perfect indicator of whatever insulin resistance exactly is, because there are a lot of things. Certainly, this is actually also not a good indicator, because it's an artificial intervention. So it's not like a physiological thing. I'm suddenly injecting a lot of insulin, and I look at what my blood glucose does to it. And I try to estimate insulin resistance from it. So it's all like, basically, what I said, it's a construct. It can be useful. Typically, when you get diabetes, when you start to develop diabetes, you'll get what they call insulin resistant. But on itself, like Mark said, it's a natural mechanism. It's a mechanism to balance out, let's say, trying to get rid of the blood glucose that's in your bloodstream and pushing it into the cells. And on the other side, the cells also don't like to have too much glucose, and they'll start to, let's say, resist insulin And that's at some point, if the cells are full, which is perfectly physiologically healthy, your cells will just reject anything, glucose, fat, or whatever. And then we get to the Randall cycle, and we can talk much more about it, maybe also next week.
Of course, yes.
But
well,
that's what it is.
Yeah, we've got a video. Yeah. We've got a video here lined up that Peter's going to get into. And just for my take is, I was pre-diabetic. I'm not anymore. I've got clients that are type 2 diabetics. And when we just look at the simple fact that what does sugar bring to the table, and what does fat, real good quality fat, brings essential nutrients. So one of them brings things to the table. The other one brings energy. And excess energy, whatever way you want to look at it, that it's I think people get into these boxes, and they just over exaggerate things. And I think if you fall back on what your body needs and how much it requires, it's a good way to simplify it. But we're going to get into some details about.
And I'll just add one more point as well, Tony. When we look at carbs and when we look at fats, what's going to cause a nutrition deficiency? What's going to cause major problems in the next 2 to 5 years with your health? It's going to be carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So, and what Peter mentioned about insulin resistance as well, it's very, very important that when we look at the cells, insulin resistance is when the cells don't respond properly, to insulin. That's what's going on at the moment. And that's why with Peter, he's a type 1 diabetic. He knows this this better than anybody, because he's actually taken in insulin, but he doesn't need to take it in glucose form. He doesn't need to take in any carbohydrates whatsoever. So that's pretty much what we're going to cover today.
Yeah, and before we start showing the video, let me add one more thing, one more term that's really relevant, much more than insulin resistance. Ben Bigman talks a lot about it. And of course, it's related to insulin resistance. So I'll use this term as well, although I don't totally agree with using it too strictly. But that is hyperinsulinemia. The fact of having lots of insulin in your body, that is, of course, not a good thing, because it's a growth factor. It will stimulate a lot of things. And if your cells are, well, I'll use the term as well, resistant to those insulin in terms of glucose, your insulin levels will go up. But insulin is involved in a lot of other mechanisms in the body. And those will basically, who knows, they are maybe not as resistant to those insulin, so they will be ramped up. And I'm particularly thinking of things like PCOS, of course, in this case.
Yeah.
I know we're talking too much, but I'm just going to add one more point. Sorry, Tony, I'm just going to add one more point. But when we look at the Randall cycle, this is why so many people struggle to lose weight, because they're mixing fats and carbohydrates together. Now, this is where it impacts insulin. If insulin is very, very high, you're blocking the body from burning fats. It's that simple. Too much sugar. Good luck to somebody who wants to try and lose weight with too much sugar in the body. It's impossible, because you're going to be hungry on a regular basis. You're going to have these regular cravings. The diet's going to be shit. You're not going to feel good about yourself. So that's pretty much what we're trying to focus on here. Yeah. The most important thing is with metabolic health, the main issue is elevated blood glucose. That's the main thing. People are taking in too much sugar, way too much sugar. This is coming from all sources of carbohydrates, whether they're complex carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, natural carbohydrates like fruits, stuff like that. Sugar is sugar, guys, plain and simple. Yeah. Whereas with fats, we can heal. The body can heal so much quickly if we just, and we can actually run a lot better on energy being on a high fat diet also.
Yeah, we look at Gary Fettke, for instance, in Tasmania. He was I think the lawsuit officially was he was curing type 2 diabetes inappropriately using low carb and high fat. That's just ridiculous. And if anything, I reversed mine from his I think his talk was one of the catalysts in my journey when he was saying how they came after him. And it's just, it's true, it's insulin puts energy into cells. And, when we look at it from that standpoint, we want to be, Robert Lustig, even like in his book, Metabolical, keep the insulin down, and it gets, I think, we get so many angles of this thing and who's right, who's wrong. I read Ben Bikman's book, Why We Get Sick. excellent explanation of the consequences of elevated insulin. And then today, when we get into Peter's explanation and get into a bit about the Randall cycle, taking it a little bit further. But a lot of people, they get sort of confused, and I think it's good.
Yeah, and a common theme that we'll see is that people get distracted by numbers. So insulin resistance already being a construct, but also people then think like you should be below certain levels, and the same with insulin levels as well. I mean, it all depends on where your body is at that moment. So your body produces your insulin. Well, for me it doesn't, but anyway, it basically means that those levels are correct, unless you have some condition or so. But typically those levels are correct, and the same with insulin resistance, even glucose levels, as long as you are not ingesting too much exogenous carbohydrates.
Right.
Correct.
Well, should we dive into your confusing video, Peter, and you can walk us through it? And it's interesting, but yeah, it's mind blowing when we actually hear this, some of it's nonsense and some of it from your standpoint. And
the insidious thing is that it's a bunch of nonsense, but there is also some truth to it. Like with the sugar diet, there are some elements of truth in it, and that actually makes it even worse.
Yeah. And I mean, from my standpoint as well, as we look at, the way I kind of go about things is we start with essential nutrients, what the body absolutely requires. And then the rest is, you can argue or subjective, but I mean, when you're eating Sour Patch Kids and candy, really, is that where we're at? And that's where this subject won't die. It's still going crazy over the internet. So I think it's really good that we're talking about it. Peter, do you want to play the video and let's just get right into it?
Yeah, let's go.
Carb to insulin ratio of 2. When I look at the very same...
The insulin resistance diet is a 3-piece approach to completely reverse insulin resistance. And those 3 pieces are low fat, plant-based, and whole food.
So I started doing some research and I discovered 2 books that basically pulled me into this vegan experiment that I'm going to tell you about. These books are Reversing Diabetes and Mastering Diabetes. The authors of these books claim that insulin resistance in all type 2 and type 1 diabetics can be significantly improved by following a low-fat plant-based diet, and that diabetes can be pretty much reversed in most type 2 diabetics if they get on this diet. This is my breakfast bowl. I've been eating this bowl or a similar one for the past 180 days, and I absolutely love it. And this bowl is probably way over 100 grams of carbs. If you came to me a year ago and told me that this is what I should eat for breakfast as a diabetic, I would probably strongly disagree with you. Back then, my go-to breakfast was eggs with turkey ham, avocado salad and protein bread. That low-carb breakfast only had about 10 to 15 carbs. But I've made some major changes to my diet 6 weeks ago, and some very interesting things started happening. Exactly 6 months ago, I would consume no more than 50 grams of carbs per day on my ideal day. And on such day, I would need to inject 27 units of insulin. For every 2 grams of carbs, I needed 1 unit of insulin. That's a carb to insulin ratio of 2. When I look at the very same graph from last week, it shows I consumed 283 carbs per day on average, and I injected only 21 units of insulin per day. For every 13 grams of carbs, I needed 1 unit of insulin. That's a carb to insulin ratio of 13. So how is it possible that my insulin to carb ratio went from 2 to 13? How is it possible that my insulin sensitivity improved 6.5 times? So in 2 weeks, I went from carb to insulin ratio of 5 to carb to insulin ratio of 11. That's a 2-fold improvement in insulin sensitivity and a 5-fold improvement in insulin sensitivity when we compare this to the low carb period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's a good moment to stop, because
That was
a lot of confusion and a
That
very
was
complicated
unbelievable.
table.
So painful,
Yeah.
so painful.
And it just, just to stop it. Are we continuing that, Peter? Or are we done?
There's a little bit that's
Okay.
just curious,
Well,
maybe to close it off
he-
later, but the
he-
opinion of this, I forgot his name.
And not to slag anybody, but he looks real healthy, doesn't he? That little guy that's introducing this,
That was the first thing I was gonna say. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
there's no muscle on his body whatsoever.
Yeah. All right. So Peter,
No, I mean, aside that, I mean, he looks like he did before, more or less. So I wouldn't say that he has worsened or anything because of the diet, but But he did follow a low carb diet for 1 or 2 years before, and yeah, it's amazing that now he switched to a diet that for me is not just sort of the opposite of low carb. It's even worse than a standard diet. In my standard diet period, I would not have eaten 280 grams of carbohydrates as a diabetic.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor, Peter? Can you back up to that graph where he was explaining, so you can explain what's going on? Because, you know, from everybody, Peter's type 1 diabetes, he has to be aware of this stuff. So, you know, I'm sure you've gone through all this stuff. And,
yeah, well, these not too much, but what he's saying is showing here, and some numbers are missing, but he's basically showing the bars where they are green, he is in range, and the yellow part is out of range. And it's important to realize here that we are talking about the diabetic being in range. And for diabetics, doctors tell you you are in range when you are below 180. And if your average blood glucose is like 130 or so, doctors are happy. And your A1C would be a 6.5, 6.8. That would be really great. For healthy people, of course, that is, we know better. And I don't like this whole idea that as diabetics, we are using different reference ranges just because of the risk of hypoglycemia, because that's the underlying reasons. Basically, doctors are just afraid that you use so much insulin that you'll end up in hypoglycemia, and that gives acute problems, whereas hyperglycemia, being too high, is sort of okay. It's, just damaging in the long run, let's say.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like the food industry, right? That tobacco is clearly bad by now, but food damages you in the long run, and the companies can get away with it.
Yeah. Can you put that graph that shows the 3 diets?
Yeah, I think that's better, because here he's basically showing that he is sort of in the same range as before, whether he's low carb or high carb.
Yeah.
And these tables are much more interesting. And first of all, I'll start right away with the fact that people get distracted by numbers, because in the before last row, you can see how much insulin the guy is using per day. And in the left column, he was on his low carb diet. In the middle column, he was switching. So he was basically maxing up the Randall cycle. He was eating a lot of carbs while his body was fat adapted. So that's actually a very bad idea, of course. I mean, he had to transition, so I understand. But you'll see it right away in his insulin levels. They they didn't double, but they went up very much. And then they went down on his fruit-based diet, let's call it like that, to 22. And now you could say like, oh, wow, that's very good. But in the end, if you look at an average person around, anybody is using about 20 to 30 or 40 units of insulin. 40 starts to become a little bit much. This guy is actually, he's not very big, so I would expect something like 22 to 25. Me, myself, I'm using something like that, and I am 20 kilos heavier than him.
Yeah.
But now here comes the funny part. This is what all the plant-based vegan influencers use this argument against the low-carb diets. It's the fact that fat would induce insulin resistance. And how do they measure the insulin resistance? Well, that you can see in the last row. They'll typically do a glucose tolerance test, and they'll look exactly at this number here. And this guy is a type 1 diabetic, so he doesn't need to do a glucose tolerance test. He can just measure, look at what he's eating and how much insulin he is injecting. And that's the number you get. So on a low-carb diet, obviously, he is not eating any carbs. He is still injecting insulin because everybody uses insulin. And so he has to use, one unit of insulin for every 2 grams of carbs. That starts to increase when he transitions, and it goes to 10 grams of carbs per unit of insulin, which is actually not even that impressive in my opinion, because if I think back of my standard diet period, that's more or less what I also injected, about 1 unit of insulin for every 10 or 15 grams of carbs. And yeah, here's the thing. It's of course totally not fair to look at this number, this ratio, for people on a ketogenic diet. And if you want to really look at insulin resistance, there's, well, I talked about it a moment ago. There's basically one way. It's still not optimal, but one way to look at it is by injecting insulin and looking at how much your blood glucose responds to that insulin. And for non-diabetics, that's a bit more complicated because, well, I can do it. It's not super accurate, but I can get a very good idea. If you're not diabetic, well, you have to get an infusion with glucose and insulin, and they call this the euglycemic hyperinsulinemic clamp. That's a very long word. It's quite an invasive procedure.
Sounds like fun, man. Sounds like fun.
It's not healthy, I think. Although, yeah, I don't know, but it doesn't sound healthy anyway.
No.
That's how you can measure it, sort of. And then still it's a construct, because what do we know about the actual insulin requirements at that specific time, that specific instance? And yeah, just one more thing that amazes me, and that's especially, you see it a lot also with this Mastering Diabetes community.
Yeah.
People do get good results. I mean, for diabetics, it's really good to go from an A1C, like you see in the first row, from 7 or 8. This guy was already doing well. He's a type 1 influencer, and he knows a lot of things about diabetes. So he was at a 6.7, which is not that bad, let's say. And he went to a 6.4. Sounds great.
That's
but it's just
a difference, right? Like, really, and when you look at the, I mean,
it's only a small difference.
Yeah, right? Like, I don't know. And it's kind of, these are so loose, these terms, these low carb periods. Like, really, what is he eating? Like, what we are, people's definitions of these diets are so all over the board, you know, a ketogenic compared to a low carb compared to, you know, and it's just, and who was it in the comments? I think it was Lisa. And I'm just gonna, or can we go back to us now? Is that enough for this, Peter?
Yeah.
She was like, why are people fighting their human biology? Just eat damn meat and be strong men for your women. I love it. And that's what it comes down, you know, in my opinion, before we get into more technical stuff. It's like, what would have been natural? Wouldn't sugar, I mean, provided there'd be, or assuming there'd be fruit in season where you are, but sugar is not natural. We would not be, go try and eat a sugar cane. You'd be sucking on that thing for days. Yeah, it's wood. You know, you'd be chewing on so it doesn't make sense. The more sugar in the plant would mean more fiber. So sugarcane being
exactly, yeah.
And then you just look at nature, man. Like, our food would have been protein and fat, and all this stuff becomes a modern problem, right? And that's the thing that people don't get. And I mean, if you want to just jump on the bandwagon, start eating, you know, your Skittles and your peanut butter cups to lose weight. You think that's healthy? You really think that's healthy? And
well, what do you see with these people? Well, it sounds a bit denigrating, maybe. I mean, but their A1Cs hover above 6, and sometimes I've seen somebody with a 5.6 or so, and a time in range of 95%. Even one time in a normal reference range. So if you're, and those are active people, they one of them was an influencer on Instagram, quite some muscles on his body and all those things, but they are still eating carbohydrates, and that still sticks around in the body because their A1Cs don't go in the actual healthy range. And just to compare, I was lucky probably. I'm not going to say that's for other reasons, but on a standard diet, my A1C was already a 5.6, and 0.5% of percentage point difference is huge in this case, really. So if you're at a 6.1 instead of a 5.6, it's utter disaster.
Yeah. And I mean, when I was going down my journey, and I was testing my blood sugar every day, like 15 times a day, pricking my finger, and then I got a blood test done, and my hemoglobin A1C was up but my fasting glucose was down. I was like, what the hell's going on? And then I actually reached out. It was the first time I reached out to Bart K, and it was before all this. And I asked him this, and he's like, and that's when he said, the glucose that's hanging, your red blood cells are longer. So the HbA1c is an estimate of the 3 months. And he kind of laid it out on an email. And I was like, that makes so much sense when you actually look at what these parameters are. Like, the elevated blood glucose is a timestamp, or your fasting glucose is a timestamp, and the A1C is an estimate. And, and it can be very deceiving. And Peter, I think that's the value that you bring to this table, because you have to deal with this and manage this in real time with the insulin response. And I think a lot of people, when we're not type 1 diabetics this is something that's way out of our we don't understand that it's the insulin, but it's caused by the elevated blood sugar. And, that's where we kind of get muddy. So now you guys mentioned something, and I mean, this is another thing that not many people know about, or it gets really misconstrued or misinterpreted, is the Randle cycle. And I mean, from my natural standpoint, when I look at what I want to preach and practice, is what comes in nature. Fats and carbs are energy, protein and fat come together in nature if we're eating a proper human diet. So why, when we mix the energies, we mix carbs and fats, theoretically, in my mind, from a scaled back way, that would be disaster, because it's excess energy in whatever form where the bodies can't deal with it. We know the liver compartmentalizes and prioritizes danger. Then all this stuff gets overactivated, and obviously our hormones start getting out of whack. So I think a lot of these answers in nature, but we don't go there. We just try to overcomplicate it. But that is the Randle cycle. So Mark, do you want to start off and sort of, can you give maybe a cold notes or a version of the Randle cycle in your
you pretty much nailed it, Tony. It's just like what I mentioned at the very, very beginning. When we look at the Randle cycle, it's very, very simple. Okay, I know Peter will probably talk about the science part of it, but I'll just talk about the logic part. You need to just look at what's optimal in the human diet. Okay, we either eat proteins and carbohydrates, or we focus on fats and proteins. That's pretty much what it is. What's optimal for human health? What gives us better energy? Carbohydrates and proteins, or proteins and fats? Now, like also what I said at the beginning, what's going to have the biggest impact on nutrition deficiency? It's going to be too many carbohydrates. You're going to have major problems. So it makes sense, if we're going to have problems, to take these foods out and just focus pretty much on what's optimal, and that's fats. We can run off two energy sources. We can run off carbohydrates, or we can run off fats. Now, with carbohydrates, that leads to so much inflammation. This leads to so many problems. This is the reason why so many people are getting sick. This is the reason why so many people are in pain, joint pain, mental health issues, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so if this is causing the problems, well, then it's a good idea to take these carbohydrates out. Then what we do is we look at, okay, what's going to heal the body? We look at adding more fats in. So that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
So it's just, we're basically running off one energy source when it comes to the Randle cycle, not both, just one.
Yeah. Peter?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm not going to try to give a scientific explanation of the Randle cycle. I think we should wait 1 week for Eddie to be on our show.
Yeah,
I have to admit, it's really complicated if you want to really well explain the Randle cycle. But yeah, in principle, it's the idea that your cell prefers to use one energy source at a time and prevents of getting too much. And adding to that, I didn't talk about it yet when there was the table, but in the last row of the table, you saw this insulin sensitivity measured in terms of carbs versus insulin. But in my opinion, we're talking about energy, and insulin sensitivity is just a construct. So what could you also do? You could consider protein, of course, but then you are again biasing towards a certain macronutrient. So instead, how I like to look at it is looking at my version of insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity, and that is the number of calories that you can consume per unit of insulin. And if you look at it in that way, it's actually quite in favor of a low-carb diet. Well, let's put it short. I'm sort of using the same amount of insulin as before. So the plant-based people would be scary and like, oh, I'm insulin resistant because I'm not able to eat carbs with all that insulin. But on the other hand, in terms of calories, my intake was probably 2,500, 3,000 at most back in the days. And now it's easily 3,000 or 3,500 of calories per day, using the same amount, if not a little bit less, of insulin. And also looking at mealtime boluses, so that's the insulin that you inject around your meals. That's actually much lower. I tend to inject 3 or 4 units. If I have 2 meals a day, that's 2 times 4 maybe. Yeah. And what my point is actually that I want to make is that this is a much fairer indicator of insulin sensitivity. And then still, of course, it has all its limitations, but at least when you do a comparison study between a low carb and a low fat diet, use this kind of measures, apply a long enough washout period, because we saw this middle column. This middle column is the period where things are just chaotic and you shouldn't look at it. Wait for people to have done a keto diet for, let's say, a few weeks at least, and look at what's happening.
Yeah. And I mean, efficiently getting fat adapted. I mean, we all, like when I was new in the keto space too, it was like all this ketosis. And I can't remember who it was, but someone said, no, it's fat adaptation. Mm-hmm. So this all changes. And I think that's the problem is we look at these things from equality, from an equal standpoint, when your body is completely different than mine. And our physiology and our environment and our life factors all have parts to play, your exercise level, your stress level. And I think we always put these things in is or isn't categories, which there's always nuance. And I know Lisa made a great point here with, people laughing at us. If you could imagine an alien species looking at this world, like trying to look at human beings, like figuring out like, what are they eating? And I mean, quite often my thing is start with a proper human diet. Just put it on the table. Think about what that is. And, and then start questioning it. Go back to, okay, if you think broccoli was a proper human diet, where did broccoli come from? If you understand that it was crossbred and made from a certain family of plant, then you would have realized that we started the crops at some time. Would that have been a species specific appropriate food? Mm-hmm. Maybe, but it wasn't available all the time. So you can do that with almost everything that you're eating and look at something and tie it into ancestral or what a proper human diet is. And I think with energy, where we would have got our energy with fat, potential energy, there's no reason to store fat except for an environmental or some kind of reason for your body to be holding it, potential energy. So in order to tap into that potential energy, that would make sense to me that your body has to be safe and release the energy.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where the fats come into, because you're tapping into you're tapping into your own fats. Whereas the argument is this, and I always have this with the carbohydrate crowd. If carbohydrates are the main source and the main fuel that we need, then why do so many people need to walk into the gym with these energy drinks? Yeah. Why do people need to have these caffeine drinks when they're actually working? I see it every day. Yeah. Every single day I see people chewing on these jellies halfway through their workouts. After their workout, they're dying to have those protein shakes because their energy levels are down. So when Peter spoke about calories earlier on, if you look at, say, 1,500 calories coming from carbohydrates and 1,500 calories of fats, those 1,500 calories of carbohydrates, they're probably going to run out probably in 3 or 4 hours on average. Whereas if you're having 1,500 calories of fats, you can probably go for about 2 or 3 days.
Absolutely. And if you just look at and we'll get to Victoria's comment. I love it, Victoria, of course. And it's good to hear from you and good to see you. That guy, that skinny little guy that we saw in that video probably has, I don't know, because I hate using the word calories, but he probably has 250,000 calories in that skinny body. So tapping into that is a whole other conversation, right? Like you know, we look at these energy in so many different ways, but insulin resistance is a misnomer. What is happening with the Randall cycle is it will prioritize fats for fuel, but in the presence of high carbs, that means blood sugar in the bloodstream will rise. Exactly. I mean,
Exactly.
bang
Nailed
on.
it, yeah.
And I mean, I think that's the whole thing. Is what also is, we always argue fat and carbs, but we don't ever throw in that, hello, okay, sugar burner. Fats bring essential fatty acids and essential fat soluble vitamins, which we require.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that should be number one. In my mind, like that should be number one. It brings essential nutrients. Sugar does not.
Yeah.
Can I just add one more? Can I just add one more point as well? And this is where people need to concentrate on when you're doing carnivore, because a lot of people make this mistake. They go high protein.
Yeah.
They say, okay, I struggled. I couldn't do it. It was too hard. I just went, and then you ask them the question, okay, what did you do? And then you break it down. You can see they're after eating too much protein. We need to understand this. You're not going to get, eating too much protein is not a good substrate for energy. No. Period. It's not. You're not going to feel great. So if the protein is too high, then you're going to run into problems. You might actually lose the weight. You might look great, but you're going to feel miserable doing it.
Yeah.
This is why it has to be one energy source over the other, and that's where we're focusing on today. That you can be a lot better on a higher fat diet than you can be on a higher carb diet. We're not, and that's what's going on in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
We know fully well, because we've spoken about this in the last couple of weeks, that when it comes to weight and losing weight, you can lose weight pretty much on any diet you want. You can go vegan, you can go on the sugar diet, you can do any diet you want, and you still lose weight.
Yeah.
But are you going to feel great? Is it going to be optimal for your health? There's the question marks right there.
And
now,
you know, go ahead.
Sorry, Tony, just one more point.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a great life and you have the life of Paul Saladino or Mark Bell, and you have your own gym and you're able to do whatever you want, then you can pretty much you might be able to get away with it and become insulin sensitive. You know what I mean? But it's not going to be good for your health.
No.
That's the difference.
And it's the essential nutrients, right? Fat soluble vitamins, fat essential fatty acids. This is not complicated. And I mean, go ahead, Peter.
Well, we are still running the risk ourselves even. And I also make the mistake every time to also talk about insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity. Because even in those people like Mark Bell, it doesn't matter insulin sensitivity. The whole point is not overloading your body with energy that it is not using. Yeah. As soon as you start to do that, you become what they call insulin resistant. Yeah. But again, that's irrelevant.
Yeah,
basically.
And I mean, if you look at carbohydrates as a knob, and you can use them for energy. I mean, I'm not saying, I think, you know, I don't need carbohydrates to go to the gym and work out. My energy is amazing, and I'm teaching people that as well. Like it's getting fat adapted, using your body fat when you're not eating the excess energy. Your body will use the fat or the fuel it needs, and it's there. It's there for us, right? It's unreal.
But Richard Smith actually touched on this. He's actually working with a few people at the moment, and he's basically one of his clients did a marathon, and like 45 minutes, 60 minutes into it, never had to refill on gels or anything like that. Yeah. These people were refilling on gels pretty much every 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. Every 15, 20 minutes.
No doubt. Well, Tim Noakes said the same thing, right? Like he wrote the Runner's Bible, you know, and he ripped the pages out and said it's actually not true at all. He was wrong. And I mean, if I have to compare myself to a marathon runner, I can go and do work or not necessarily exercise, but keep my energy level rock solid all day. I don't have any dips. And if I do have a moments or bouts of exertion, I recover so fast. And now someone comes along and says, you need carbohydrates. I tell them, well, I got 2 words for you. And it rhymes with tuck and moo, right? Like I don't need carbohydrates. There's no need. And I feel great every day doing it.
And what does the brain run off? The brain doesn't run off glucose.
Right.
It runs off cholesterol. Right. Your brain is made of fats.
Fat and cholesterol.
So
Right.
when we look at the glucose arguments, yes, your body needs glucose, but this is where gluconeogenesis comes in.
Exactly.
Your body, you know what I mean? Your body can actually produce this. So this is what we're talking about. You don't need to get this from outside sources. You don't need to get it
this
from...
is where they always try to fool you. That then they'll tell you that your brain needs carbohydrates, and of course it uses glucose besides ketones. But as soon as carbohydrates are in your body, you shouldn't use the term carbohydrates anymore. I mean, of course, glucose is a carbohydrate, but your body doesn't run on carbohydrates, just glucose and ketones.
No doubt. And that's Byron Carnivore Beats, man. Please, guys, make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel and his TikToks. He brought us that beautiful music this before the show. And ironically enough, it was Fire is in the Fat. And it was all about what you need is in fat. I mean, it's not rocket science. And all these people saying you need carbohydrates, well, it's just not true. You do not, you know, and the longer you go, the more efficient you are at using fat for energy. It's just, it becomes more and more apparent. I mean, we've all been doing this for years now. And the secret is in my diet is my protein to fat ratio. If I'm feeling off, I add more fat. If I'm, you know, if I'm still hungry, I try some fat first. I always play around with the fat. Sometimes I realize with my steaks or the meat I'm eating, it might be leaner than others. So that can be a factor as well, you know, just adding.
Yeah, this is the fat that I was eating this afternoon. This is a rib roast aged for 1 month in the fridge.
Oh, wow.
And the fat that came off it was really wonderful.
Oh,
I love it anyway, this type of fat. I eat it raw most of the times.
And just a reminder to
your
everybody,
body.
I think we got to do a segment with what Peter eats. I think we got to do that. I think that's going to be a new feature in the matter. Anybody in the comments want to know what Peter eats? You just tell us yes, and we'll do it because he has some pretty creative stuff. I mean, yeah. I mean, he makes me jealous with his lamb burgers. Those ones look really good.
No, but I'll tell you, this was really the nicest dry-aged piece of meat that I've eaten so far.
Oh, right on. So that's kind of like beef jerky. Look, Peter, they want to know what you're eating. We got to do it, buddy.
It's really fatty.
There you go. So that's what we're going to do it. Look at this. Everybody's commenting, Peter. They want to know what you eat because you've got your beautiful Dutch charm is getting fed adequately. We love it. All right. And thank you guys for engaging. Thanks for commenting. If everybody could please subscribe to the new channel. We just launched it today on YouTube. It's MOTM 2025. It's hashtag Meat of the Matter. We're getting it going. We appreciate all your support and all the comments because we love it. And that's why we're here. It's awesome to engage with you guys. But we're going to do the segment, Peter. Okay, we got to talk about that. We're going to do what Peter eats. And we're going to do a feature every week.
I'll pay attention to not eat anything too embarrassing.
Yeah, what do you mean embarrassing, Peter? You got the menu. You got the broadest menu of a carnivore.
I have to confess that a week ago I did eat some chocolates, for example. So
yeah, we heard. Well, you know what, Peter, you've been known to go bananas once in a while too, so we understand that. But we got this week. We got a little. We do a segment every week. It's it's what I've come to love about Mark. And every morning when I hear his TikTok videos, I can't wait for it. So we'll get into it this week with this.
These guys are getting richer while you're getting sicker. Write that down. 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 These foods are highly processed, complete garbage, and I can promise you now, I wouldn't even give it to my fucking dog. Write that down.
All right, buddy. This week on Write That Down, we got a couple videos here, Mark, so we'll get into it here. Wow, Mark. Another epitome of health there this morning. I was like, I was like, what?
Oh my God. 76 grams of protein, boys. For
a $5. And I wonder how long the ingredient list was.
Oh my God. Holy shit.
Yeah, and looked like the epitome of health personified as well. Peter, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, just a hyper focus again on protein without even realizing what kind of protein he's eating. I'll just mention one name. You can guess it probably. His first name is Peter. And his last name is not mine, but it's Ballerstedt.
Yeah.
Peter
Yes.
Ballerstedt. Learn about protein, and also in the whole discussion about agriculture versus how do you say it? Well, meat versus plants in terms of feeding the world.
Yes.
Well, look at what type of protein you are feeding the people as well, because protein from grains, they are worse, and also they are not measured correctly.
Yeah, no doubt. Exactly. And Peter Ballerstedt's like one of my heroes, to be honest with you. He's like, his logic and the way he's learned stuff about protein, being a forage agronomist and studying animal husbandry, is pretty good. You can match it to, they're not humans, but they do have things. And I mean, how do you think that, Mark, that little protein Tesco bomb, whatever it was, how would that do for your insulin resistance?
Oh my God, I'd be in bits after that, in bits. And the thing is, like, I'd eat all that, and I'd have to eat again in an hour's time.
Yeah, right. For a $5, you'd be spending 50 quid.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's incredible, because I actually put up another video last week of a guy sitting in a car, going on about the carnivore. He's talking about it's a fad diet, and then I put up a separate video that he's there in the background talking about fucking protein bars, protein yogurts, protein supplements. You're gonna get 75 grams of protein here, and I was like, holy shit! Like, where's the real protein, buddy?
Yeah.
It's like, and you only have to look at this guy. There's not an ounce of muscle on him. And he talked in his video there, I think it was last week, that he was 40 years of age, and he had his top off. And I was very, very tempted to put a video up of me with my top off, and just put like 50 on top of it.
Yeah.
No, I was very, very tempted, but I said, no, I won't do it.
And like, I look at those things and I just think, just look at the ingredients, man. If there's a bunch of ingredients, it's probably not good for you. I get people sending me stuff all the time. Is this good? Is this good? I get pictures of ingredient lists, and I'm like, just once you read past the first two, what do you think? If you can't pronounce that chemical, it ain't good for you.
It's all marketing shite. You say it's the same with low calories. Anything you see on the front of a label, low fat, low calorie, sugar free, all this high protein, all this bullshit.
Yeah.
We need to be looking at the back. Forget about what's on the front. This is just all marketing crap. What you see on the front is not a true reflection on what you see on the back. If there's a list, like what Tony said, if there's a list of ingredients on it, then guys, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
No kidding. And
it applies to meat as well, because if you buy grass-fed meat, at least in the Netherlands, they'll use all kinds of terms like not grass-fed and grass-finished, because that's sort of clear, although it's not a protected label here anyway. But they'll say something like, I'm not sure how you say it, but like meadow cows or so. So sort of vague terms suggesting that they are in the grass all year round.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically you don't know what you're buying.
Oh man, Lisa overcooked her ribeye today. That's not fair. That's okay. We've all done it. We've all been there. It happens. Now we have another video, Mark, that I wanted to touch on, because this is it's a pretty serious thing. And I think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of context to it. And I know what your comments were. We'll hear it, and then we'll touch on this as well.
This girl is 40 and in hospital right now after having a heart attack. She was forced to take the you-know-whats to go to work. Now, as you all know, young people are dropping like flies. Young people are now having heart attacks like never seen before. Just look at the data. Heart attacks are through the roof since the you-know-whats came out. Excess deaths are up by 25% since the you-know-whats came out in December 2020. It's all there, plain and clear to see. All you have to do is look it up. People, we need to get this out. If you're having any problems.
Okay. So this is a little bit serious, and I don't want to get into too much of the you-know-what theory, but Mark, your comment on after that was, I think, spot on, because regardless of what you've done, if you're eating a bunch of crap and you're not aware of what actually is the cause of this, it's going to make things worse, regardless if you got the you-know-what or you didn't. Like, and that's where we're coming from our perspective, trying to help people metabolically or be metabolically healthier. And obviously heart disease is the number one killer, regardless of the you-know-whats. So I just wanted to get your take on that, Mark, and your message was pretty profound after it.
Right, guys, how are we doing for time?
Well, we're good. I mean, I'm good for time.
This is something that I'm really, really passionate about. This is something that really, really annoys me. It's just, when I saw the video yesterday, I was like, I have to reach out to this guy, and I did reach out to him. I said, listen, I'm not giving out to you. I just want to have a chat with you. And he wouldn't have the chat with me at all. He was absolutely convinced that this is all down to we know what. And I simply just asked him the question that, okay, we all have to eat. Every single one of us have to eat. Do you think people in the world right now are eating healthy? And he was like, yes, we're all eating healthy. And I was like, well, if we're all eating healthy and we're all on a low-fat diet, then why are metabolic issues going through the roof right now? So I had this conversation back and forth. So again, I wasn't coming across aggressive.
Yeah.
I was just trying to have it like a civilized conversation with him. But it was him that was actually aggressive to me. Oh, no, you can't talk like that. It's this. And that's when I got angry. And that's when I put the message up. I was like, listen, we cannot keep on blaming genetics. We know what else we're going to blame. Like, there's so many other factors that we're blaming at the moment, and we're not focusing on the real problem here. Yeah. And that's what's really, really annoying me. And I put up another video yesterday as well. Like, young people below 40 years of age, guys, are having heart attacks.
Yeah.
Like, it's 1 in every 12. Like, it's happening every single day. Like, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. When does it stop?
Yeah.
When does this? I did a 5-minute video on this yesterday. It's the longest video I've done. And I woke up yesterday and I was like, listen, I need to nail this. I need to make sure that people actually know about this, because I was so passionate about it. And I know I swore a little bit on the video, but it really infuriates me that this is what's happening in the world. And then I also put up another video today of a woman who had liver damage, guys. Liver damage. Yeah. Again, under 40 years of age.
Yeah.
And she thought she was doing great by taking these injections.
Yeah.
She could have died.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't there more done about this?
I know. And Mark, in my take on this is too, like, I have my opinions about those things that we will not mention, but and I don't think they're good. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people got sort of, for the wrong reasons, whatever. But I think in my heart of hearts, I think they expose weakness, or they expose there was something that you were more prone to happen maybe down the line. Well, it's going to be worse now. And if anything, the people need to start building their own resilience. I mean, it is crazy how athletes are dropping on the field, like, over the last few years. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. But realistically, everybody assumes athletes are healthy. Everybody assumes all these, if you're skinny, you're healthy. And I think this metabolic health and the processed food, all the chemicals in our food supply, all of this makes sense to make those things worse. So anybody who's worried about it better worry about this, because this is the thing you can control. Mark,
and Tony, just to add one thing to that is that this thing is bad when you're metabolically unhealthy. But the natural version of it, to undergo it, is also bad. Of course, it will also expose all kinds of weaknesses, and I think it's very short-sighted from a person like this to focus on just the artificial version of it. The whole thing was bad.
Yeah,
and of course, it's a bit easy to think it's all just from the last few years. Of course.
Yeah.
Can I just add one point as well? During the pandemic, were we healthy?
Yeah, right.
Were we healthy? The gyms were closed.
Yeah.
Okay, we couldn't get out in the sunshine. We couldn't interact with people.
Yeah.
But they left the off licenses open.
Yeah.
They left the
All the
takeaways
liquor
open.
stores. Yeah.
Like, guys,
Close-
honestly,
Closed the
seriously.
parks. Closed the parks. They closed
You know,
our
man,
provincial parks and our national parks. They closed them. Government
It's-
parks.
we were fully controlled.
Oh, yeah.
Controlled. We weren't looking after our own health, which is what we should have been doing.
Yeah.
Everybody should have been outside. Everybody should have been interacting with each other, talking to each other. What did he always say about mental health? If you're suffering with your mental health, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You weren't even allowed to do that.
No.
You weren't even allowed to go and visit your family. Holy shit, guys. Honestly, it's the biggest, honestly, what really frustrates me about all of this is nobody's held accountable. Nobody.
Yeah. No doubt. And it's shocking that now and I'm not saying it isn't the case, because I have a very strong opinion on those things, but the roots, the things that we can do, that we can control, is bring the awareness to your metabolic, your health, and get healthy. These things are being driven. And I don't know what you guys think about this. We've had a few people on our interviews lately, but I think the sugar diet craze, in my tinfoil hat, guys, thinks it's a plant. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense where you throw all of your health out the window just to eat this stuff and give yourself an excuse to eat candy bars and soda pop. And like, that sounds to me like a marketing, and it's scary and it's sad. And I think,
and can I just add one point? It's amazing how this is all over social media. TikTok will allow this to happen, no problems. But when I talk about something that, like, say, cholesterol or fat or something like that, it never gets put up on TikTok, and I actually get a warning for it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, holy shit! Like, what's going on here? What is going on? Whereas I could put a video up about the sugar diet tomorrow on TikTok and say how good it is.
Yeah.
I guarantee it would blow.
No kidding.
Blow up.
No shit. And that's that's where I'm looking at this, and it's almost like there's so many things that pop in. I was like, if you're going to be on the sugar diet, you're a vegan. Like, if you're against the veganism, or you're not on it, this is what it is. That's what it is. It's not, you know what I mean? It's crazy how people just start blaming it. And I'm not saying because the statistics are showing every single non-communicable disease is going up exponentially and getting younger. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, all of it. And people are younger. Every year they're younger and younger.
And our only solution is medication.
Yes.
That's it. That's our only solution. You go to any expert. Okay, I don't know what to do here. I'm just going to put you on medication. And we spoke to someone there, Tony, last week. Who was the girl? I know it wasn't actually me and Tony. It was actually me and Victoria. Victoria is on now. We spoke to Krista.
Yeah.
She was forced to take medication.
No kidding.
She went to see our doctor. She wanted to lose weight, and our doctor said, "Okay, I need to put you on Ozempic, but I only want to give you." She was like, "Okay, I only want a small amount." She went to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy told her, "Are you sure you want to take this?" And she was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "This is a full dose." A full dose.
Yeah.
And the pharmacy told her, "If you take this, this could kill you." And this is what the doctor prescribes. This is what the doctor prescribed. Victoria will tell you this.
Yeah. No, I think I saw this. I saw, I don't know, a clip or thing about that. And I was screaming mad when I heard that too. I mean, this
incredible.
Is ridiculous.
Absolutely incredible.
And I mean, I'm going to go off the rails here and say, I'll go up against Ozempic any day. Come and work with me. I'll tell you what, save your money. Come and work with me, because the shit you don't need it. And it's just an excuse. And I'll tell you, if you've done the you-know-whats and you're on these drugs, your body is going to be going through havoc. And if it's oxidative stress, damage, and neglect, what do you think happens? If you've done something that you regret or that you don't think is right, well, if you're not on the point with your health now, this may be a big, big deal. And I think survival of the fittest comes in, and it's time to get healthy, because we don't know what the fuck is happening next.
Exactly. And they have no problem taking what they took in the past, but now they have no issues
Yeah.
taking these weight loss injections, none whatsoever. People are taking them like Smarties. You can go into any shop. You can go into a pharmacy now and buy them if you want to.
Totally. They're
You know what I
glorifying.
mean?
There's
Yeah.
advertisements like it's the new phase marketing. I see it all the time now. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah.
And doctors need to wake the fuck up, because what's going to happen is in the next 2 to 3 years, these doctors are going to be gone. We're going to be running off AI.
Yeah. No.
Like, you know what I mean? So you won't even need to go and see a doctor. Everything's going to be done through AI.
Yeah.
And
I think,
Yeah, in most cases, that won't be such a difference from many doctors nowadays, right?
Yeah. And you only need to look at what happened through the pandemic. None of us got to see a doctor face to face. None of us.
no.
It was all prescribed over a phone.
Yeah. Telemed.
Yeah.
So how can someone tell me about my health when you've never actually seen me over the phone? Honestly, it's scary. It's absolutely scary.
No doubt. And they're already doing, I don't know who it is. One of the AI companies is working on the nurse the nurse is going to be AI. So it's going to be a ChatGPT nurse. Like what? Okay. I mean, it's weird because carnivores, we seem to go more the other way into the nature, into the nature of things. And I just wanted to touch on a point for anybody new just listening to this that needs to hear this stuff. Go back to our videos. Go back to Victoria's videos and Mark's Carnivore Evolution podcast. Go to Peter's videos. Go to these things and hear these stories of these people that are doing these things that the medical system said couldn't be done. Mm-hmm. And how many times? Go to Dave Mack's channel and, like he's got over 1,000 now interviews with people like us that have been, including all three of us, that have done these things that were deemed impossible or doctors said couldn't happen. I mean, Dave, Lisa, like all of us have gone through this stuff. And, it's crazy how many people still have this problem. And I mean, Lisa and I talked about doing a carnivore rant. That's the thing that pisses me off more than anything, is that we sit here with our friends and family and our families look at us and go, oh, you're so great. There's no way I could do that. And it's like, it's coming down to your health on the line, because I don't know whatever way you want to look at this, our governments are not on our side. Our medical systems are completely ignorant to real health. And whether you want to say it is or isn't, doctors get into it for the right reasons, but they're indoctrinated and programmed and taught something too. So doctors are people, and I feel for them because, I was in school for 4 years and I didn't want any of my education. I can only imagine if I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and, realized I was wrong.
It's very simple. If you cut yourself, what happens? The body heals. It heals itself.
Yes.
Why are we not looking at this? Why are we not looking at, okay, your body's an amazing machine. It's able to heal itself if you just feed the body the right way. Why do we need to put these chemicals into our body? Nobody's questioning this. And that's the frustrating part. It's like, if I'm getting sick, I need to go and see the doctor. I need to be on medication. No, you don't need to be on medication. No. Let's look at what you're eating. Let's look at what you're eating. None of us here are saying that we're doctors. No. But what we are saying is very, very simple. Myself and Tony, we're coaching this way. Peter knows what he's talking about. You need to look at what you're eating. Give your body the right fuel, and let's see what happens. And if it doesn't work, then we can look at the medication. But you're never going to be in that situation unless you actually try.
Exactly. And I mean, and if we just look and take a step back, like, I mean, I saw this in my laser acupuncture clinic all the time. And, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but as soon as I ask somebody what you're eating, they automatically say, I eat healthy. And I mean, even if they're exaggerating and they're not admitting that their junk food intake is what it is, I'm like, what the hell? That's not healthy. Like you're inflamed, you're in pain, you're coming in for stress and anxiety, and you're eating like shit. And they look at me like, but I'm not though. And it's like, holy cow. And we get told that we're crazy. And it's like, what? I mean, it's amazing. My brain is alive and it's indescribable. I can't explain, because 30 years ago, I had no idea what this feeling was until you felt it. And I'm sure all three of us, you have this turnaround point, this spark that all of a sudden, when your body's in this state, you're like, this is what it feels to be alive. And I have not felt this since I was a child. And I mean, I think we're all put up against the wall with our crazy carnivore ideas, and it's just hammering it home. I
Yeah,
think
and the only arguments you hear against it are very unspecific. They totally lack specificity. Like you need to eat fibers. Well, what kind of fibers and why do you need that? Because most people you ask, they have no idea why you need fibers. Maybe because it stimulates your bowels, something like that. And if they are really up to date, they'll say something like, "Oh, it will dampen your glucose spikes. It will slow down the sugar." But that sort of things, and words like balance, variety, and I always say like variety is not like a vitamin. Balance is also not micronutrients. So what are we talking about? And never did I get a response like, what does it mean, balance?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Do you just buy everything in the supermarket from the vegetable department?
Exactly, and like you said, when you look at the blood glucose and they're getting these spikes and you're getting these regular hunger issues, you're always told, okay, just eat more fiber. It's going to slow everything down. It's going to keep you full. But then people are walking around with digestive issues. They're bloated. They're farting every 2 minutes, and these people think this is natural.
It's maximum coping. I mean, it's and then the funny. What's funny, Mark, is that they always say that carbohydrates are the most efficient fuel source. And then we are going to add in fiber to slow things down. And they're going to complain like, oh, you're eating all those proteins and it takes way too much effort to digest and it's way too slow. And then it's suddenly bad again. Well, I think it's actually very good that proteins are slowly digesting, because that's probably what your body likes, that it has all the time to absorb things, as long as it's all absorbed. And we know the videos from Lee Copus from Carnivore that once it's down there, it's all absorbed.
It's in the bag, so to speak. Yeah.
And the thing about fiber is, if we're eating too much fiber and it's so good for us, why does the body want to get rid of it very, very quickly?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're eating proteins and fats, you're probably not going to go to the toilet every day, probably every second day, but that's a good thing because your body's actually absorbing these nutrients.
Yeah, it would have found ways to keep it longer in the bowels, or evolutionary, we would have longer bowels to increase the whole fermentation process and all the stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
And if you guys like, I don't know what you think about this, but like, to try and tell people this, just get this into your head. What if it's exactly what you're eating? What if, because they tell us it's all food is, it doesn't matter, it's just the calories, or it doesn't really matter what you eat, it's all how your body is working. No, what if it's exactly what you're eating? And if you don't feel good, if you're sick, if you're broken, if you're suffering, ask yourself that question and then start the process, because it's amazing what happens when you start eliminating all these foods that are nonsense. And I mean, in my opinion, I think a lot of these forever chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, and toxic, we're in a toxic soup, have the other side that you're not resilient. And I think those things get exacerbated. They get blown out of proportion in your body when your body's weak. So this is where we're at, man. And I feel for people, but at the same time, all it's about awareness and just starting to realize, like, all three of us have had these remarkable stories. We talk to people all the time about, these amazing healing things that have happened, and it's not rocket science.
100%.
Well, boys, we had a good one today. Thanks to all the people, all the peeps out there. We really do appreciate your comments, and it's great to see you guys engaging. Next week, we have a special co-host, because Peter, he was so damn busy he couldn't meet Eddie. So we have Eddie Goki coming on. He's a carnivore phenom. His mind is amazing. His mind, he's got probably one of the newest up and coming carnivore phenoms that we can that there is out there. His book Contraindicated. I've got it on order. I think, Peter, you have it, and he will be on the podcast next week. He's agreed to come on and co-host, so we'll have some things to say. Guys, join us, have some questions for Eddie, and we just want to say thanks again. Mark, where can everybody find you?
Thanks very much, guys, for coming on again and listening to us. If you guys want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Fitness Beyond Time 01. I'm on Instagram or TikTok. If you want to send me, if you're interested in coaching, send me an email at ennismark93@gmail.com.
Peter?
Yeah, on all socials as Dutch Carnivore.
Nice. And if I'm always like waiting for Peter's long thing, and it's just like, no, Dutch Carnivore.
Yeah, and we should still abolish the sugar diet.
Yeah. And if anybody would like to work with me, you can find me at tonystewartcoaching.com. Of course, on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Tony_food for thought. We are here every Sunday live at 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. in the UK and Ireland, 7 p.m. in the Netherlands and Europe. We will be doing interviews, bringing them out. We got Lisa's interview coming out this week. I'm going to bring out Eddie Goki. Mark and I got to sit down with him for 2 hours. He was fantastic. We had a great conversation. We're going to start releasing these interviews on the weekly, and we would love to have your thoughts. If you guys can help us make this better, give us some comments, help us share, subscribe. Please subscribe to our new Meat of the Matter channel on YouTube. It's at MOTM 2025, hashtag MOTM. Thank you guys. We will see you next Sunday. Appreciate you all being here. And I hate the sugar diet too, Peter.